Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam. Ask is the acronym for Always Seek Knowledge. This is seeking knowledge about not only ourselves, but the world around us and the things that are happening for us, not to us. And much of this is just, having some clarity, having some understanding that, things are just happening. And they're happening by design, and they're happening for us by design. And once you kind of dial into seeing how things are happening for you and not to you, well, I can assure you, you'll start seeing that, you'll see the bigger plan. You'll see that things are occurring as expected. And you'll begin to see patterns that will, let you know that you're kind of on the right path and that you're doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing. Now, if this doesn't resonate true to you, maybe this episode will give you some clarity. This episode is the Clarity Sprint, 60 minutes to a plan. I hope at the end of this episode that you'll be able to see a little bit of where you're forecasted to be and go in your life, whether that's personal and or with business. Hey, let's get started with the episode. See, clarity doesn't take a month. It takes momentum. Most people don't need more time. They need a focused hour. Overthinking kills momentum. In fact, it's one of the toxic 10 I speak about many times is overthinking. Creates procrastination. And that's quite frankly, when you get to planning, creates that procrastination. And what you need, it's not another notebook. It's a sprint. I know I've talked about journaling and I've talked about writing down your intentions and reading them and understanding them and focusing on them, and things will happen. But let's dial this in a little bit deeper and look at it more like a sprint. Okay? There was a time where I was getting involved with the insurance business. And nothing against insurance. Let me be clear about that. I think it was more of my idea and or intention of what I thought this business was going to be. Okay? And I created too many ideas while I was studying for my exams for both the life and the health insurance certificates to be able to sell this product. I found myself trying to get involved with too many aspects of the business, such as the health side or the life insurance side and the different aspects of life insurance. And then what are the options of life insurance? And then starting to look at some of the disability insurances, both short and long term, and how all of these could be bundled up to, quite frankly, make one amazing event in someone's life. And how excited I got about how I could change someone's life. And I know I'm put on this earth to change lives, but I don't think it was through that way, because quite frankly, it didn't work out. But again, in my mind's eye, I saw myself just kicking the hell out of this business, just rocking it. And quite frankly, I look pretty damn good in a tie and a suit. And I'd show up with my briefcase full of ideas and options. And all I needed to do was simply understand what it was you were looking for. And I had certainly something in my bag to begin to qualify you for, getting something that you could use. Now, again, nothing against the insurance industry. And I have insurance myself, I have life insurance, I have business insurance. I have many facets of insurance. I have insurance against my financial endeavors, right? In various investments. So there's nothing wrong with insurance, nothing wrong with the insurance tools. They're great for everyone. And I will share with you, again, no sales pitch, but early is better than later. and later is better than never. Again, not an insurance pitch, but if you have a family, if you have friends, if there's people you care about, if you have an enormous amount of, let's call them assets, and let's just say demands on your life, um, you need some level of insurance to cover those demands. Because quite frankly, at the end of the day, we're not promised another day. And if something does happen in your life, well, you want to ensure that your family has that level of protection in place. Now, it may be a short-term or long-term situation. Again, depends on how long that you have this situation in your life, but certainly don't burden your family and or your friends with these situations that, quite frankly, could have some level of coverage towards your assets, I'm speaking. Anyway, I digress. It wasn't until I sat down and focused, and I started with an hour, and a pretty drastic devastation in my life. Those of you that know me and understand some of the stories and maybe even some of the episodes of Walks on the Beach, that I went through a period of devastation. And it was during that devastation that I said, let's focus an hour on just sitting down and being clear about what's important in my life. And then another hour, and then another day and another hour, and just an hour. That's all I did, at just focusing and understanding what it is that I want. And many days it was sitting in silence, and many days it was a host of options about what I could do, endeavors I could tackle. But nonetheless, I share with you today is that by incorporating and at least starting with one of those hours, well, I started to create immediate direction. And it was from the direction that I started laying the blocks to this plan. To this plan that is, quite frankly, what you're seeing today is these and other episodes, the template and the textbook of things that I'm creating as we speak. And launching probably one of my greatest business endeavors, myself. And that allowed me, well, the opportunity to reset after a drift of not knowing, a drift of being confused, a drift of being frustrated that I wasn't in the direction I wanted to be. In fact, if you've heard my one specific talk about running, it speaks about this. Anyway, I promise you in this episode, I will walk you through a structure, 60-minute clarity sprint that you can run anytime you feel scattered. I would say I at least incorporate it once a week. Not that I feel scattered, but it's almost become habitual. And it almost has become a little bit of the sort of a post, if you will, that gives me direction, that allows me to make sure that I'm on the right direction, to revisit my why, to revisit what I'm doing, and to make sure that what I'm sharing with you is full, comprehensive, and clear. The 60-minute clarity sprint framework. I like to break the hour into 4 focus blocks. Block 1, dump the noise. Empty your mental clutter. First of all, leave your phone in a completely other room. Your smart device is smart enough to be without you for this hour. You do not need that distraction. You don't need ambient spiritual noise in the background. And if you can find a place in your home that, quite frankly, doesn't have road noise or the disturbance of what's going on in your house with your family and your friends and your children and your pets and all the activity, and even if it's the corner of the basement where nobody knows they can find you behind the stacks of things you promised you'd get to, so be it. You need dump the noise. Now you're going to empty your mental clutter. And first, we're going to start writing things down. So have a desk, some hard surface that you can relax with a pad, pen, and paper. I like the good old-fashioned spiral notebook. You can get them relatively inexpensive, and really, it doesn't matter what your the line measurement is. If you like fine or not so fine, but I like the spiral. Right, the spiral allows things to stay connected, and that way you can keep them together, and you just go through. I like to date the top of it, maybe even put a topic, maybe something that's concerning me, bothering me, a season, whatever it is, something that would kind of help you relate. Then I will begin to write everything down. And this is everything from projects, worries, ideas, half started tasks, conversations, goals. Start just journaling and sketching them out. I think you'll find that in this process, you're going to start discovering things, well, you probably didn't see before. Let me caution you, don't try to organize it. Don't try to think of it like what's the first thing, the second thing, and the third thing. No, just write. Write everything down. The idea is that you're trying to capture all of this just on a document, just on a page. Now, the reason that I like the spiral is because you date the upper right corner, write as much as you can. Maybe if you turn it over, put continue with the same date, keep writing. Maybe you get 3 pages, 4 pages this first episode. Put the date so you know a recording of what you've captured. If I can share with you one of the reasons why this works is your brain is for processing, not for storing. And many times we collect everything and then decide we're going to defrag. Well, you can't defrag, not inside your head. It processes, but you kind of have to let it out before you can let it back in. So we want to get rid of that storage, and we want to relieve that storage and put it on paper. And as you've heard me before say, what we write, we invite. So by kind of getting this out and getting it on paper, we're kind of also subliminally starting the process of inviting things, or at least sorting them through. The other reason why this works is, well, mental overload feels like confusion, but is actually compression. You've got all this stuff just compressing and compiling in your mind. All these ideas, these wants, these dreams, things you want in the future, things you'd like tomorrow. And it's just getting compressed. So what we're going to do is we're going to relieve and let things out. Just, again, write them out on the paper. And this first episode, well, you might find yourself even exceeding that hour. But again, it's a mental dump. We're getting through things. Because what you'll find is what's taking up mental space is stuff that really doesn't need to be there. And once it's on paper, your nervous system calms. The compression subsides. And quite frankly, you'll find probably a little bit more relaxed. Now, again, it should only be about 15 minutes. But if you find yourself really, you've got a lot of compression, feel free to take a little bit more time this first episode. But in practice, you just want about 15 minutes. Then block 2 is another separate 15 minutes. And here we're going to define the target. Choose one primary outcome. And this is something you're going to ask yourself. If the next 30 days went perfectly, what would move the needle most? In your life, if the next 30 days went perfect, everything you're doing now, what would move the needle the most? Also considering what outcome would make everything else easier. Again, 15 minutes and we're defining a target. Let me also share with you that this is not 12 goals. It's not a life overhaul. We're sprinting. This is what would move the needle the most. And if you had one singular outcome that would make everything easier, what would it be? Currently in your life, no drastic changes yet. Again, we're defining targets. We've decompressed. Now we're finding our target. We are looking for one clear target. I'll give you an example. When I understood that being a speaker was where I needed to be, it was what I was supposed to be. And my first thought is, well, what am I going to speak about? And I went through this process and came out with the outline for the speech. Was it the speech entirely? Was it my whole keynote? Absolutely not. But I was nailing down the 4 most important points of my keynote that I wanted to convey based on my experience that I knew wholeheartedly was the pivot point for not only my life, but for others. It was through this exercise I can share with you that I also began with the outlines. If not only the keynote, but these episodes, what do I want to convey? And not necessarily telling stories, although that's one of the branches of the episodes that kind of was a spin-off. But what do these episodes convey? And from these sprints also came the title and many other things from it over the period of time. So I want to share with you that you're not just going to do this once. You're going to do it several times. And you'll get in a habit like I have where I do it about once a week, every 2 weeks, where I get that time to sit down and really focus. And what is it that I really want to hone in on? I can share with you that I've tightened up the 15 minutes, but again, give yourself 15 minutes at least. You'll find that by going through this process, you can then start to hone it in to be able to explain what it is you truly want in one sentence. And if you can't, well, then it's not clear enough. If you're finding that you're writing out a paragraph, well, guess what? Got to tighten that up a little bit. You got to be, again, this is the target. This is the middle circle. This is what we're trying to hit. Not the target in general. We are trying to hit dead center. Now, block 3, this is going to be another 15 minutes. This is, in fact, our third 15 minutes for those of you keeping track. And in this aspect, we're reverse engineering. So what we want to do is turn our outcome into steps. And that's where you're going to ask yourself, what has to be true for what you want to happen? What are the first 3 actions that you need to conduct in order to hit your target? And this may be your research step, your build step, and your execution step. Just focusing on those three. And if you're like me, you you can get yourself distracted with some fantasy planning and seeing the big lights and the bright marquees with your name on it and stuff like that. I don't get too outside of just the target. I also want to caution you to not use the word someday. These are things we're going to start tomorrow, fellow procrastinators out there. We're going to start this tomorrow. We're going to start this next week. Because clarity lives in action, not in intention. So no some days. We're going to research, we're going to build, and we're going to execute. This is what we're going to do. Now, I never said it was going to be easy, but I can assure you that when you finish this sprint, it's going to be effective, and it's going to give you clarity. And now you can begin to move forward. And that's going to take us into block number 4. Calendar and commit. You know, I got to share with you, this is kind of where most people start to fail. It's the commit part and the calendar. And I find if I have a calendar, and my assistant will tell you that things on my calendar are things that I do. And I really have gotten regimented to do that. Almost to the point that jokingly I say, is it on the calendar? And if it's not on the calendar, I don't feel like it's something I need to do. Again, I know that sounds silly, but it's discipline. And it's this repeated behavior that I have placed myself in. I wasn't always this way, by the way. I mean, I was to a certain degree. I was pretty regimented in my schedule, but I had some loose ends. And I tightened them up by specifically saying, put it on the calendar, and I'm going to commit to it. So let's not be most people. Let's not set ourselves up for failure. But let's start. Remember, we're starting, so there's no hardship here, right? I'm not being harsh. We're all starting from zero. So we're on the even plane, right? No judgment, no criticism. We're all starting at zero. So we're starting this sprint today, by the way. Put the first 3 actions that you've come up with to nail your target, put them on your calendar. There's Google Calendar, there's a paper calendar, there's digital calendars. They even set up with reminders. I encourage that to remind you that something is coming up that you need to do, and you can set that reminder. I pretty much have a pretty good calendar of events going on, so I kind of know what's going next, and my team always provides me with the, hey, we're done with this and we're moving along. So there's really no mystery for me which direction I'm going into, but I can say that, well, again, putting it on your calendar, I can't argue, I just have to do. So put the first 3 actions on your calendar and assign dates. The other thing I encourage you to do is start putting other things on your calendar so that you will not have an excuse not to. So when you commit to something and someone says, hey, can you do this? Your digital device that, yes, you have in your back pocket, if not already sitting on the counter while you're watching this, or you're watching it on your device, yep, there's a calendar on that too. You can quickly look at your calendar and say, oh, I'm sorry, I have some other commitment. That's all you have to say. You don't even have to say no. I have another commitment. Is there another time that would be better for you? This would be better for me. You don't have a commitment then. Don't start moving commitments just to accommodate another obligation. Stay committed. So assign dates and assign a duration and be steadfast to what you've agreed to, even to yourself. It begins with yourself for sure, but start there. And then I want you to put a follow up in your calendar when you will review the progress of the process that you're going through right now. So you assign dates, you assign the duration of that event, what you're going to do, this sprint, for example, and then forecast maybe in a week or two or three and put a reminder of when you're going to review the progress. Maybe even make a notation of who you're going to tell about your progress. Do you have a mastermind group? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a coach? Do you have a best friend you confide things in with no judgment? Great place to start. Because I can share with you is once you've set that up and the follow through is set up and you have a public commitment, this is going to increase your follow through dramatically by like double-digit percents. So calendar and commit. So why does the sprint work? Well, there's psychological drivers. Having this time constraint, and like I said, I'll give you a little freedom because you're going to probably write down a bunch of stuff and really decompress on that first visit. And you do want to decompress and schedule a second sprint within the next week and now stay focused on that 15 minutes. But that first decompression might go over. And don't get upset that you went over some time. It's okay. Give yourself time. But the next one, now you're going to commit to that 15 minutes because you've relieved the pressure. So there shouldn't be as much to write down on that next episode that, by the way, you put on your calendar and you committed to. But you want that time constraint because now it's going to create focus. So when you sit down and you start writing things out and know you got 15 minutes to clarify things, well, it's Parkinson's law. Work does expand to fill time. Limited time increases your intensity. So as you train yourself to know, hey, we're going to sit down for 15 minutes, I got to come up with something, your brain's going to start activating. And preferably, little inside tip, do this roughly the same increment of time, like every 2 weeks, once a week, once a month, do this sprint and do it at the same time. So just like when you go to bed and your mind knows you're going to bed and it's time to go to sleep, the body can rest. Same thing. You need to train your mind and your body to know, hey, we're going to sit down and we're going to sprint. We're going to go through this mental sprint. Another reason why this works is it's decision reduction. So you reduce overwhelm by choosing one target. You're focusing on just one thing, not multiple things, and not even multitasking, which, by the way, is proven to, well, not work so well. You can do multiple things, but not at the same time. Kind of like spinning plates, and if you've ever seen the guy at the circus spinning the plates on the stick, well, I get tired just watching him. I'm sure you do as well. So don't put yourself in the situation of trying to spin plates. Just do one thing at a time and focus. You also get into the momentum loop. That's one reason why this works, is because it creates action and then feedback and then confidence. This builds clarity. So you're stating the action you want to perform. You're performing the action. You're giving yourself feedback. The feedback is building confidence and therefore creates clarity. So give yourself some grace that first time of decompressing, but you can see that the second time you want that moment to start your action, feedback, confidence, and then clarity. Because the next time you're going to be clear. I'm almost certain that second event that you've put on your calendar and committed to, you're going to have even more clarity and you're going to hone it right into 15 minutes. And then you're going to move to the next 15 and the next 15. And part of this exercise is also going to, well, like a muscle, like any exercise, repetition, well, it creates a better pattern. And you'll find that you're going to start making decisions at speed. No more hesitation because, again, you have clarity and you have focus, target, and you've made these motions already before in previous exercises that you've put on the calendar and committed to. So now your decision speed just becomes a natural reaction. And these become tiny levers in your life. And it's also a great way to combat procrastination. Even if you don't have it in your life, it's like anti-procrastination. It's like it will keep it away. Just like good vitamin C and a healthy diet and a healthy immune system will keep something away, well, same thing. By doing this exercise, we'll keep procrastination from ever seeping into your life. And again, I cannot stress more than ever that everything links back to motion. So you have to do the steps. Now, I will caution you that there are some common mistakes that you need to avoid. Over planning. Now, I know I gave you grace on the first event because a lot of that's just decompression. You might not need it, but I'm going to give you some grace just because that first event, man, there's a lot of baggage. Kind of get that out, but stay focused. And don't multitask. Don't try to do all 4 steps in 15 minutes. This is an hour. It's fast, but it's an hour. And they're 15-minute blocks. Set an egg timer or the timer on your phone and flip it over and don't watch the countdown. You don't need to see, you just need to know when your 15 minutes are up and then segue to the next step. Trust me, as I mentioned earlier, once your mind knows it's under some level of pressure, it will act and it will go to work. You'll be surprised. And remember, we're just looking at one target. You can find yourself choosing too many goals, and that can lead to confusion. We're just starting with one. And these are sprints. So remember, you're going to sprint again in a week, 2 weeks, a month. Whatever you put on your calendar and committed to, you're going to come back to this again. So just focus on one. If many come to mind, say, no, we're going to work on this and move on. And don't think about the rest. And I know you're probably going to say, hey, I'm just going to throw it on a Post-it, put it on the fridge. I'm going to look at it, because I look at the fridge every day when I go to get something to eat. So I'll remember that I have to do my sprint. No, you got to put it on the calendar. Set a reminder, set an alarm, if you will, with the reminder. So you have an audible reminder that says, hey, guess what? You're going to do this in 15 minutes. Or, your clarity session, your clarity sprint is in 30 minutes. But always put it on the calendar. And even forecast, like I said, once you build that cadence of every week, every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever your cadence becomes, pre-plan it, put it on your calendar. There's many steps, especially with Google Calendar and Apple Calendar and all the rest of them, that you can put this as a reminder for multiple times. So set yourself up already for the rest of the year. This is what you're committing to. And don't wait till you feel ready to do this. The first step is now. The first step is today. First step is next week. but I'm not going to accommodate procrastinators, so it's now. Don't wait to feel ready. Do this today and begin today. See, you don't need motivation, you just need structure. So let's do a quick rehearsal, huh? Let's say the goal is, well, I use mine. The goal is grow my speaking brand. Clarity sprint results. My target, book 3 paid speaking engagements in 60 days. Step 1, identify 25 potential venues. Step 2, draft an outreach email. Step 3, and then send 5 of those outreach emails per week. And when am I going to do this? I'm going to commit to Tuesdays between 9 and 10 p.m. See, it's practical. It's not theory. We don't teach theory. I teach practical examples, and you can do this with anything. What is your goal? Is your goal to build your business? Here's your target. Book 3 meetings with people that can help you with your business in the next 30, 60 days. Identify 25 potential clients that you could add to your business. Draft an outreach email, inviting them to participate in your business, in your offering. Send 5 per week and put it on the calendar when you're going to do these actions. See, it's practical, can be applied to anything. So run on your own clarity sprint this week. No phone, no distractions, just 1 hour. Tag at Ask Adam Live with hashtag clarity sprint and tell me what target you chose. You don't need a new year. You don't need a new hour. One focused sprint can change your direction, and your direction changes everything. This has been another wonderful episode of Ask Adam Live. Now let us go out and make it a great day.